Today we're going to talk about the top 5 mistakes that you can make with your Subaru WRX or STI, and this is kind of mistakes in general and more importantly mistakes when modifying your WRX. I think the title is going to be mistakes when modifying, but these are mistakes you can make pretty much if you're not modifying or if you're stock or if you're going to modify. There are a few stock items here that you should listen to even if you're not going to modify the car. And this is kind of a reflection after 6 years of ownership, 6 years in the community. Doesn't sound like a long time, but this is like 6 years of blood, sweat, and tears. This is all I talk about. This is all I do. This is all I research. This is all I know. Hopefully bringing some good information that we haven't necessarily talked about on this channel in a list format that's all condensed and something you can talk about. So the number one thing on our list so far, this is a modifying item, is going to be installing an intake without a tune. So you actually see it quite often, and there are a few intakes. Well, let's start with this. You see it quite often. People install intakes on these cars and they don't tune it. That's because on naturally aspirated cars, often you can install an intake and not have a tune. You don't have to change anything. It won't greatly affect your air-fuel ratios and other aspects and KPIs of the car. That being said, with this platform, if you are installing an intake that does increase the performance of the car, you are going to need a tune or things aren't going to run correctly on your car. So it is something to seriously consider when you are modifying it. Make sure if you get an intake, you get a tune. The other caveat, because I know you guys are going to be in the comment section below of they make intakes out there that don't require tunes. Well, the frank answer is if you don't need a tune for the intake, it's not making any difference on your car and likely won't make any difference even when tuned because it's not opening anything up. It's a harsh stance. What we've basically seen is almost no tuners will touch anything other than a Cobb intake at this point. Number 2 on our list is a follow-up with the intake and no tune, and it is a Jpipe and no tune. It's actually surprising. People do install turbo back exhaust, so that's going to be a Jpipe on a WRX or a downpipe on an STI. They install a turbo back exhaust and often will not tune it or will run it for a period of time until they're tuned. If you are installing a Jpipe or a downpipe on the WRX or STI platform, you at the very minimum need to be running the equivalent OTS off-the-shelf tune from Cobb, MA Performance, until you get your car either E-tuned or dyno pro-tuned. That's on a dyno tuner. And yeah, I mean, again, this is confusion about the difference between axle back, cat back, and turbo back. If it is turbo back, it must be tuned. Cat back, you are A-okay. Number 3 on the list, did you notice my wrapped side view mirrors? Let me know in the comment section below. This isn't number 3, but let me know in the comment section below whether you like the side view mirrors wrapped black. I'm actually becoming a super fan of these. I think they really add the right context, and they like offset the colors with the white and the black. I like them. What do you guys think? So number 3 on our list is a long usage of an OTS tune. This is an off-the-shelf tune. OTS tunes, if you don't know what it is, I've got tons of videos on this channel about OTS tunes, but what it really is it's a general tune put together by a tuner that is designed for an entire year of WRX or STIs. So it's a very generalized tune. It's meant to be more open parameter so it can affect more cars and kind of, all WRXs and STIs with certain mods in a certain year in certain conditions fall into this bandwidth of what the tune applies for. This might sound awesome and great, but the reality is it's a general tune. And while it's okay to use it for general use, long-term use is not the optimal performance for your car and potentially could put you in risky situations if you have big fluctuations in your driving conditions. The safest and best thing to do is to get either an E-tune or a Pro tune that is specific to your ride. So you can dial in all the aspects to the car surrounding the parts you have and what you want to get out of the car, and actually have a tuner look at your performance in your area, at your atmospheric pressure and the temperatures you drive in, and get someone with experience with an experience in your area. That's going to be a very powerful tool. And the reality, guys, here is off the shelf is okay for a period of time. It's a good carryover tune. Some of the MA Performance tunes are a little bit better, but long-term use is not the best for your setup. I couldn't recommend this more. I know there's people out there that have been running them for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Those are really unicorns. I've seen people have issues with long-term use, and it's just because the OTS tune isn't designed to pick up for certain things. When somebody does a dyno tune and they have the car in front of you, they do put things, so like Bren tuning, he does put certain like catches in place. So like if like I get close to having spark plug issues, it might throw a check engine light, or he can turn this off. He can have this control over the car and set certain standards and have a better idea of what my car is doing specifically. So long-term usage with the OTS tune can be a big mistake. Number 4 might surprise a lot of you guys, but number 4 is actually putting bad gas or the incorrect gas in your WRX or STI. Bad gas, I mean, if you run an access port with a tune and you watch the values and what can read as feedback knock and find knock learn, and when your dam goes down, once you've done that for some time and you've experienced some bad gas, you can feel and understand the damage that it could do on your car and the potential risk it has for your car. Just being bad in general for all the mechanical elements, bad gas can also be bad when you're driving under wide open throttle and other things. You can have specific events that could lead to engine failure or something similar. So bad gas or putting in risky gas is potentially a huge negative for your car. And it's like kind of like if you're running a marathon, are you really going to eat a donut before? You need to fuel your body to do what you're doing, the same way you need to fuel your car quite literally for what it is performing. What my recommendations here are: run 93 or 91 if you're pro-tuned, or tuned, you need to be running the gas that you are tuned around if that's easy. A good example is I only put Shell V-Power, which is 93 in my car. I was tuned around that. It's the only gas that's touched my tank. I don't even think I've had an emergency situation yet with this car where I've had to put another brand 93 in. It's all been Shell V-Power. What I would recommend is that alone isn't even enough. You need to go to high trafficked gas stations so you have a high gas turnover, and what that means is fresh gas. You don't want to get the stuff that sits at the bottom of the tank or the bottom of the well, the gas well at the gas station. You want high traffic and high octane and generally just good gas, and that's going to be there's a tiered system that you can look if you don't have Shell around you, but there's a tiered system. Just do some research and it'll tell you the tier and quality of every producer's gas. So like Mobil, Shell are basically the top of the list. There's a couple other chains that use the same suppliers of Shell and Mobil and British Petroleum and processors of the gasoline that aren't brands that I know around this area. But bad gas, again, we'll cycle back, bad gas can ruin your day and ruin your car's day, quite literally. The last thing, number 5 on our list, that you have to consider that could be a huge negative and mistake when you're modifying your WRX, and this is specific to modifying, is your intention when you talk to your tuner about what you're trying to do. What do you mean here? Well, a tuner's always going to make a recommendation for what he thinks or she thinks is best for your car and your situation, but the thing here is you need to not exaggerate or not misrepresent the situation you're in. For example, if you take your car to a tuner, you can say squeeze every single horsepower and pound-foot of torque out of the car, and they will be able to do that. Is that the safest way to use your car? Absolutely not. So the thing that you have to understand here is you need to make sure you're having an open conversation and relationship with your tuner, explain what you're doing, and your tune is going to come accordingly. Now you might think, oh, that sucks. Well, the reality is when this car first hit the dyno at the top pull, it made like 328 horsepower and like 335 pound-feet of torque. But I had told him I'm dailying the car, so we brought it back down. I'm running 315, I think, or 315, 310. And the reality is, between those two setups, you can't feel the difference. I mean, 10, 15 wheel horsepower when you're already at 315 wheel horsepower isn't a noticeable difference on the butt dyno. So it is something to consider that little bit could risk your car greatly, and the return on what you feel driving your car is going to be much lower. And I'm sure this happens a ton. People are just like, get everything out of the car, and a tuner is going to oblige because you're paying them for a service. But that's something to really consider when you're tuning these cars, that you don't need to, the difference between 331 and 315 wheel horsepower, not noticeable. You might be able to brag that you have 331, but your car is running a heck of a lot harder. And depending on what mods you have to support that, they might be on the upper end of what those mods can actually support. And that's a dangerous place to be at versus the kind of like upper 3/4, the like 60 to 90% versus the 90+%. So something to think about. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Hopefully I gave you a little bit of knowledge after 6 years and what I've seen. And these are extremely common things. So take them into account whether you're tuned already, you're thinking about getting tuned, or you're thinking about getting to the platform. Thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate it.